Yesterday I published a new research article to Litecoin.com discussing the fact that over 40 million Litecoin have remained dormant for more than a year, which of course is a staggeringly large number and over half of all of the circulating supply at this point. I'll leave a full link to the article down below, but today in this video I just want to discuss a bit more and help visualize the points made in that article. Now this is a trend that does not seem to be exclusive to Litecoin. Earlier, just a few days beforehand, Coinbase actually reported that 10 million Bitcoins likewise have not moved in more than a year, the highest levels since 2017. Now admittedly, some of the tools here are somewhat rudimentary, but if we compare this to the dormancy rate for Bitcoin provided by BitInfoCharts, we get a similar rate, so I'm more than happy to use this as a yardstick to measure. So looking at the Bitcoin dormancy rate, we see this slow increasing curve that culminates in this point here, which is of course still being calculated. This point here then means coins that have been active for more than a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and you get the picture. We can zoom across and get the marker put at different year points in order to better read what we're looking at. So for example, Bitcoins that have remained dormant for more than 2 years currently equates to 7.72 million. And the further back we go, of course, the more unlikely these coins are to ever move. After all, at this point in July of 2013, these 3 million Bitcoins almost were valued at around $100 each in the first pump of 2013, it was around that time. And the people who own them simply have not moved them even at this point in January of 2018, where Bitcoin was pretty much $20,000 a coin. I think it's safe to say then that those are some pretty strong hands to not sell even when given that price point. It would be disingenuous of me not to point out, however, that some of these coins back here in July of 2013 are probably burned coins and are never going to be transacted ever again because the private keys have just been lost. However, if these coins back here aren't lost, then indeed whoever is holding them has an extremely strong resolve and a will of solid iron. Comparing this Bitcoin dormancy rate to Litecoin, we see a somewhat similar pattern emerge. Of course, not as many Litecoin are being held from back in the early days in comparison to Bitcoin. However, the rule we just discussed still applies, so coins held back here in January 2016 are in the hands of very strong-willed individuals who have a very high confidence in the success rate of their investment. After all, Litecoin at this point was $3 or $4, and even when January 2018 rolled around, where a single Litecoin is valued at over $300 or $400, these coins still did not move. Now, it would be very much disingenuous of me to say that all these coins here charted are indeed inactive. As you'll note here, there is this very strange anomalous spike that took place. And in fact, I wrote an article about this last year entitled Litecoin's New King Whale, 1.1 billion transacted on the Litecoin network in a single day. It was on the 30th of November where the network saw around 60% of Litecoin's entire market cap, or around 35.5 million Litecoin, moved in just a single day. Now at the time I actually wrote this, I had no idea or no access to tools that would allow me to better understand who was behind the move. However, quickly glancing down the Litecoin top 100 rich list, a pattern quickly emerged. There were around 40 brand new addresses which appeared on the network, each containing 300,000 Litecoin each, or around $10 million at the time. And in fact, you can still see these addresses. So if you come down to a dormancy page, which I'll leave linked below, you can see here is all those 300 addresses. And each one of them contains around 40 to 41 transactions, and all the inputs are around the same day, just a few hours apart. And notably, these actually have no outputs to them either. So while 35 million Litecoin had been transacted on the network, these addresses accounted for 12 million of that. There was a lot of speculation at the time I wrote this of who could be behind it. Some people thought it was an individual, an extremely wealthy person from back in the early days, and some suggested that it may indeed be a service provider. We didn't have to wait long to actually find out who it was, however, as around 2 weeks later, Coinbase came out with their own blog post writing a behind-the-scenes look at the biggest and quietest crypto transfer on record. In the blog post, they admit to moving around 5% of all Bitcoin, 8% of all Ethereum, and 25% of all Litecoin. Again, that 12 million was around 1/4 at the time I wrote it. Now, Coinbase did this mainly for security reasons. They were upgrading their infrastructure, and they even write down here that Coinbase stores 98% or more of all customers' funds in their cold storage system. So this was a huge migration effort from them. So taking the information we have and putting it in the context of dormancy, we see that 12 million of these Litecoin here really are only pseudo-dormant. Indeed, there are many people, most likely on Coinbase's service, who don't trade and are just holding the Litecoin on the service, which is completely fine if you want to do that. However, without access to further insights or Coinbase coming out and just directly sharing this information with us, then all of these 12 million coins, which are actually listed as being dormant, could indeed be active, and this could go for other addresses in here. For example, this one with over 500,000 Litecoin, again follows the same pattern of only coins going into it but nothing coming out. This could be another exchange which we don't know about. And this pattern pretty much continues all the way down, apart from a few sparse addresses here which have had one transaction come out of them. As such, I think when looking at this data, we need to take a very balanced view of it. This isn't an actual real figure that we can take as gospel. However, this trend that we are actively witnessing does give us vital insights into perhaps a more long-term view of how investors in the technology are viewing it. In order to see that confidence continuing to grow, we really need to see these points here not dropping but just continuing horizontally. The big question then we need to really address is, when looking at this dormancy curve, how much of this data is accurate and real? And what does this tell us about the confidence of investors in the network? As well as, does it hint at a larger trend change in the markets? When it comes to other methods of on-chain analysis, there are a couple of people whose work I greatly admire, starting with Ter Demeester, who is a founding partner at Adamant Capital. Now he, as far as I understand, has access to much greater tools than I, and he recently posted an interesting tweet down here, writing, "If I had the time, I would now write a report called Bitcoin in Reaccumulation. Bull market expected to continue in 2020. Now, Ter doesn't actually expand on the point he's making here. However, the dormancy curve we just looked at would indeed go some way to backing up what he's saying. It's not conclusive, but it would certainly be supporting evidence. The other person I wanted to bring up was Willy Woo, who is a partner at Adaptive Capital, and some of the work he has done. Unlike Ter, Willy has actually done some analysis purely on Litecoin and has some interesting thoughts to share on it. Willy has a bunch of custom charts he has made on his own website. Not all are public, however, he has shared some of them here on his Twitter. We see here his graph for Bitcoin investor activity, which has been decreasing and just now more so steadying out and slowly starting to grow. Whereas with Litecoin, this investor activity leveled off a bit earlier and has been growing a bit earlier as well. So it's somewhat leading away, and this is a pattern we've actually seen in history. And it is something Willy Woo in fact himself is expecting to happen again, writing in a tweet, "In a nutshell, I'm expecting a bullish run for Bitcoin led by Litecoin as a confirmation signal." Of course, this isn't the only thing he has had to share. There is this, which is a chart of Bitcoin here and Litecoin up here overlaid. And he points out, just to strengthen the fact that Litecoin seems to preempt Bitcoin and lead the way in many respects, that this second leg up from this small bull flag here happened first on Litecoin and then subsequently on Bitcoin, and Litecoin also fell first before Bitcoin did shortly after. And now it appears that Litecoin has broken out earlier and has actually broken above this level of resistance, whereas Bitcoin is yet to do so. And finally from Willie, there is the Litecoin difficulty ribbon, which is hosted on his website, and I will leave linked down below. This is basically the price in blue here. Let me just zoom in, with the red lines here being moving averages for the mining difficulty. And this has been reacting in somewhat of a similar fashion to the NVT ratio, which is again just another metric hosted on Willie's site for on-chain volume and usage. Now admittedly, in the early days, this difficulty ribbon doesn't seem to have been too useful, especially here when it just broke out very suddenly and sharply to the upside. However, you'd have had other tools such as the horizontal resistance here in order to get in much earlier. However, its usage further on, especially at the breakout of the 2017 market back here, was a pretty strong indicator. It started trending all the way up until about this point here, where it started to give you warnings. Of course, this is where we had that massive descending triangle, so it actually tends to line up pretty well. Down here, it proved to be pretty useful when it started to roll over, letting you know that there may be a trend change. That proved to be correct. And further over here, when it started to trend downwards, that told you it would have been a good time to sell again, which proved to be pretty accurate. And now we seem to be getting a rollover once more, with the first few bands crossing into the positive territory, suggesting that we may be seeing a trend reversal and the bottom may have been in at just under $40. And just looping this all back into the dormancy discussion, this may be being helped out by the fact that there are less coins being traded, and there is this mindset change which we can see where people are choosing to hold on to them rather than trade. And with that said, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to let me know what you think down below or on Twitter. I always enjoy reading your thoughts and opinions on these topics. If you liked this video, be sure to leave a like, and while you're at it, why not subscribe? And as always, I will see you next time.